I counted cards at 5 Las Vegas casinos all in one day, and they are starting to get sick of me. In this video, you'll get to see exactly what it's like counting cards in Las Vegas and what happens when casinos find out. Also, by uploading videos just like this one, I'm putting my entire card counting career on the line. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. It's free and it makes it all worth it. Anyways, please enjoy the video. It is day 3 on our Vegas trip, and we decided to start the day off by playing at the Stratosphere. We sat down at their juicy double deck game and bought into play. Our very first hand, we were dealt a 13 against the dealer's 9. We hit for 16, which wasn't great, but hit again to make 21. The dealer busts, so we won, but more importantly, the count was now a true 1. So, following our bet spread, we put out 2 hands of $100 and were dealt 2 mystery cards that weren't in the shot and a 20 against the dealer's Queen of Hearts. We hit the mystery hand, which bust, and stood on our second hand. The dealer then drew to 16 and bust, meaning we had a neat little push. Now the count rose again, so we raised our bet to 2 hands of $200. We were dealt a 19 and a 15 against the dealer's 6. Standing on both, the dealer drew a queen to make 16 and pulled a 7, busting their hand, paying us out. The count stayed the same at a true 2, so we kept out our bets, and the dealer was showing an ace. So we checked both hands to see if the count was high enough to take insurance, but the count was not high enough. Unfortunately, the dealer did have blackjack, so we lost both of our hands. The count dropped, so we put out a minimum bet, which bust. But the count went back up, so we bet accordingly. The dealer drew another ace, so we checked both of our hands, and again, the count was not high enough to take insurance. This time though, the dealer did not have a blackjack, so the round continued. My first hand was a 15, which I bust, and my second hand was a 9, which I hit to make 17. I stood, and the dealer then proceeded to draw a 5, a 6, a 2, and a 7 to make a 5-card 21. I lost both hands, but the count rose significantly because of that 5-card 21, and I put out my max bets. My first hand, I drew a blackjack. Nice. My second hand, I had a 12 against the dealer's 7. I hit and pulled a 10, which busted my hand, but that's okay because we still profited $400 from that blackjack. After this round, the count didn't go back up for another hour or so I decided not to include that footage in this episode. Overall, I ended up playing 2 hours at the Strat with a session profit of $2,000. Next, we headed downtown to check out some of the games there, and Plaza was first on our list. The table we were looking for was completely empty, so we sat down to play some heads up. A couple of neutral shoes went by before we finally got a positive count, to which we put out a bet of $500. The dealer drew a 4 and we stood on our 18. The dealer then proceeded to draw to 14, then to 23, winning us our $500 hand. The count dropped slightly, so we reduced our bet and were dealt an 11 against the dealer's 8. Of course, we always double this one and we pulled a 7, which pushed with the dealer's 18. We kept our bet out and were given a 7 against a 3. We hit and stood on our 16, and the dealer flipped an ace, followed by 2 face cards, giving us yet another win. The count rose again, and so did my bet. This time I was up against the dealer's 10 with my 19. I stood and the dealer beat us with a 20. We dropped our bets to $100 and were dealt a 15 against a 6. We stood on our 15 and the dealer drew to 15 and then bust. Our bet remained the same and we got an 11 against a 7. We doubled for 21 and the dealer drew to 15 and bust yet again. Another $100 bet and we had a pair of 3s against the dealer's 10. But the dealer had a blackjack, so we put out another $100. 18 against the dealer's 11. We stood and fortunately the dealer drew a 6, meaning that we got our previous loss back. We increased our bet with the count and pulled a 12 against the dealer's 10, which we quickly turned into a 20. The dealer flipped over a 7 and our 20 wins. The count was really close to a true 2, but not quite, so I bet $200. I soon regretted this decision when my 16 was faced against the dealer's 9. I had no option but to hit and I drew a 7, losing me my hand and the extra $100 I decided to bet. Last hand of the shoe and I pushed forward a bet of $500. I could only hope for a good hand, but instead I got a 12 against the dealer's 3. Now this is a hand I would typically hit, but the count was high enough to deviate, so I stood. The dealer flipped the most foul 8 and drew to 21. This hand was doomed to lose. Anyways, a few shoes later, the count went positive. $300 was out and I was dealt a soft 19 against the dealer's 3. I waved the dealer and they waved back with a 17, winning our hand. I upped my bet to $500 and drew a fat blackjack, right on time. Did you catch that? The dealer paid me $725 on a $500 blackjack. I brought it up and she quickly corrected her mistake. Now you may say,
"But Pinkman, you just won $725 on that hand. How could you possibly consider that losing money?"
To that I say that my edge as a card counter is extremely small. A few dealer mistakes here and there completely kills my edge as a card counter. Anyways, the count rose yet again, but before the cards could be dealt,
Thank you for playing us. Not we can play here. Alright, no worries.
we got a total of 14 minutes at Plaza and won roughly $1,300. Next, I went to Gold Nugget, but we already covered that in a previous video. If you haven't seen it, it is phenomenal. Open it up on a new tab and watch it now, watch it later. I mean, watch it while you watch this video, whatever you want to do, I don't care. In summary, I got 27 minutes at Golden Nugget and won close to $3,000. From there, I went to Resorts World where I expected to be playing a $50 minimum game, but the limits had risen to $100 in the evening. Regardless, I sat down to play. In our second shoe, the count began to rise, so I put out $200. 17 against the dealer 6. I stood and the dealer drew to 26, making this an easy win. The count had dropped and I ended up losing my next $100 bet, but the count immediately jumped back up, and this time I put out $400. The dealer gave me a 14 against their 10 and I had to hit. A 17 was a stand and the dealer drew a 7, turning our bad hand into a lucky push. $400 stayed out, and this time I got a 15 against the dealer's ace. The count was above a true 2.5, so I took insurance. Thankfully, the dealer did have a blackjack, so we didn't have to play out our terrible hand. The count had dropped, so I lowered my bet to $200, and I had to stand and hope for a bust. The dealer flipped a 6 and drew to 10 for 21. They didn't need a win that hard, absolute overkill. The count went back up, so another $400 bet went out. This time, I was dealt a 20 against the dealer's 8. The dealer drew to 16, then 20, pushing our hand. I played again with $400 and got a 6 against their 10. But it wasn't any ordinary 10. This 10 was a blackjack. So I tried again with another $400 bet, and this time the tables had turned and we were the ones with blackjack. Nice. The count had gone negative, so we put out our minimum bet of $100 and I was dealt a 10 against the dealer's 9. At a true -1 or below, doubling a 10 against a 9 is actually not the best move. So instead I hit to make 18 and the dealer turned their 9 into a 17, meaning we win our hand. Here we bet $200 at a true 2 and we received a 14 against the dealer's 6. We stood on this one and the dealer drew to 16, then made 18, beating our hand. So we decided to try again, and this time with a $600 bet at a true 4 where we were given a pair of 3s against the dealer's 7. We had to bind to split and now we had two 13s. We hit the first and it bust, and our second 13 made 17, so we stood. The dealer then drew a 4 for an 11, and then an ace for 12, and then finally a 5 for a push. Definitely not the most miserable hand, but it could have gone better for sure. The true count jumped way beyond a true 7, meaning we would bet our max. $1,000 out. What I was looking for here was either a blackjack or maybe a 20 or something, but no, I drew a 13 against the dealer's 10. Yikes. I mean, I had to hit this, and yeah. Needless to say, this was pretty frustrating. I decided I would include one more hand from this session just because I thought it was really cool. I had $200 on the table, 8 against the dealer's 5, and at a true 4, this hand was a double. And unfortunately for me, my 18 lost against the dealer's 19, but these deviations are always fun when the opportunity shows up. At Resorts World, I ended up losing $2,500 and playing for around 18 minutes before the back off came. And I'm sorry, I don't have the footage for the back off. You're just gonna have to trust me on this one. The final casino I hit was Treasure Island. Let me tell you now, I didn't even last 10 minutes at this casino. I bet table minimum until the count rose, and my spread may have been a little too aggressive for them, because when I went to put a $100 bet out,
One more blackjack.
yeah, an instant back off. And they didn't even bother analyzing my play. I took my chips to cash out, and as it happens so often in Vegas, the cashier asked for my ID. I typically hold it out with my name covered, but she was adamant that she had to hold my ID in order to cash me out. And unlike the manager from Gold Nugget, he verified my age and cashed me out. Finally, a casino manager who is professional and knows the law. My compliments to this guy. In total for the day, we played for 3 hours and 6 minutes, won $4,090, and generated $2,200 in EV. Just before you click off this video.
No blackjack in here. Alright. Never.
If you want to catch my last 2 sessions in Vegas, where I squeeze out my last few drops of EV, click the join button below or head over to our Patreon. Members will have access to exclusive content, like unreleased footage, behind the scenes, a Discord server, and some other perks that we're rolling in. So, if that sounds interesting to you, join now, and I'll see you guys there. I've been Pinkman, and I'll see you guys in the next video.